show is sponsored by Delete Me. Flying in America. The fastest, most convenient way of long-distance travel. Punctual, convenient, quality, prestigious. Wait, I'm sorry, I mean constantly late, inconvenient, low quality, and about as prestigious as a highway gas station. Tens of thousands of delayed flights each year, missed connections, wasted time, ever-increasing junk fees, ever-shrinking overhead bins and legroom. There is something clearly wrong with the American airline industry. There is a shortage of pilots, flight attendants, and all kinds of other airline employees. Those in the industry are overworked and exhausted, having to deal with frustrated and angry passengers after waves of flight cancellations. Meanwhile, service to mid-sized cities is constantly being reduced, citing low profitability. These are the obvious signs of a broken airline industry. But in this case, the frustration for the passenger is a crisis for the country. Worst of all, American taxpayers have to keep bailing out this disaster show like during 9/11 or the COVID pandemic. They have no choice. If the airline industry collapses, the economy would soon follow. So in a bizarre twist of fate, US airlines are simultaneously failing and are too big to fail, turning them into bottomless pits Americans have to keep shoveling money into. In other words, flying sucks and taxpayers are paying for it. However, what people may not realize is that this ongoing disaster show can be all traced back to a single decision made about half a century ago. So in order to have a shot at fixing this mess, first let's take a look at how we got here. From the 1910s and on, during the early years of the US airline industry, the US government helped upstart companies with subsidies. Establishing a safe, reliable, stable service across the country was an obvious national interest. This subsidy program was a success. Until it wasn't. Once airlines established themselves, cutthroat market competition began, turning the brand new industry into a battlefield. In order to rein in companies and bring order to the skies and airports, Congress stepped in and passed the Civil Aeronautics Act of 1938. This gave rise to the Civil Aeronautics Board, or CAB, an organization set to regulate entry into the industry and to enforce certain price controls, keeping airfares fair and reasonable. The CAB also prevented airlines from using their power and leverage in sectors other than aviation. The goal was to artificially calm the market to avoid bankruptcies, thus taxpayer-funded bailouts, something that has become normalized today. They also work to prevent market predation, smaller players getting muscled out, and airports being dominated by a single large company, among other goals. These efforts resulted in a regulated oligopoly with a small number of highly regulated big players, which were forced to provide reliable, high-quality service across the country. And they did. When people think of the golden age of US aviation, this is the era they have in mind, and it was brought about by regulation. But then, disaster struck. In the 1970s, manufacturers began delivering high-capacity, wide-body airplanes. This resulted in overcapacity or more empty planes. In addition, between 1969 and 1978, jet fuel prices more than tripled on top of the oil shock of 1973. The CAB did respond by raising prices and cutting excess capacity, but it was too late. The system of regulations came under pressure from both political sides. They passed the Airline Deregulation